Thank you, Curtis. The 2021 Hall of Fame inductee for radio is one of the most iconic news programs in the industry. For 50 years, listeners have loyally tuned into NPR's All Things Considered during their afternoon drive time. The trumpet tones sound, and listeners know they are in for news from around the world. Thoughtful commentaries, interviews with newsmakers, and features on arts, music, and entertainment. All Things Considered keeps us informed, engaged, and inspired. On May 3rd, 1971, ATC made its debut, airing on 90 public radio stations. And for 5 decades, we as listeners have learned more about the world around us, enjoyed thoughtful commentaries on cultural issues of our time, and discovered the beauty of the arts. We've laughed, we've learned, we've been entertained. Like an old friend, this timeless radio program kept us company each afternoon. Now broadcasting live every weekday for 2 hours, and for 1 hour every Saturday and Sunday, ATC is hosted by Elsa Chang, Orty Cornish, Mary Louise Kelly, and Ari Shapiro, and on weekends, by Michael Martin. These are voices we've come to know and trust. The most listened to afternoon drive time news radio program in the country, ATC has been honored with some of journalism's highest honors, including the George Foster Peabody Award and the Alfred I. DuPont Columbia University Award. We are thrilled, absolutely thrilled, to add NAB Broadcasting Hall of Fame to that list. Let's take a closer look.
I think the reason that people have responded over the years to All Things Considered is that it keeps things weird.
Where else are you going to be able to get a news show where in the beginning of the hour you get a smart analysis of the conflict in Afghanistan, and then later in the hour you hear scientists teach you about this cockatoo that has learned how to lift trash can bins with its beak?
At our best, we put out a 2-hour broadcast every weekday that is informative, balanced, and often surprising. We introduce people to new ideas, new books and movies, new thinkers, and we challenge our audience's preconceptions.
NPR itself started with All Things Considered. We are who we are because of this program.
I mean, this is the quintessential afternoon American show. There's no other show that comes even close to it in quality, in values, in legacy.
I hope that people respond to All Things Considered because you feel like we are strapped in there right next to you.
Thank you so much for this honor. It is awesome to be sharing this moment with all of you in person. First of all, thank you for letting the 2021 winners crash the 2022 party. It is so great to be celebrating with all of you. I want to thank, first of all, Curtis Leggett, the president and CEO of the National Association of Broadcasters, as well as Bill Wilson of Townsquare Media Group, who's the radio board chair at NAB. I cannot tell you how proud and humbled I am to somehow have stumbled into this job that is part of a show that has become such an important part of people's lives for over half a century. Because, you know, when All Things Considered first launched back in 1971, NPR, it was still kind of this weird, revolutionary experiment. It was started by this small, scrappy team of people just trying to figure out, what does public radio sound like? And what the creator of All Things Considered, Bill Siemering, wanted from the very beginning was a national news show that actually sounded like America, where the hosts were given license to be human, to be accessible, to be people who could connect with the individuals they interviewed with genuine curiosity and empathy. And to this day, I still believe that radio is the most intimate medium out there. And I know I'm saying this in a room full of all kinds of broadcasters, but I will defend this to my dying day. There is nothing quite like the connection that forms when a single voice beams into a kitchen or a car or into a set of earbuds. And NPR, it's what started that, you know? NPR taught us that something very unique happens when a listener and a voice lock in together to better understand the world. And that special relationship with now more than 11 million listeners every single week is made possible by now 826 member stations across the country. And that structure is what makes NPR so unique. You know, sourcing from and serving local communities in a way that most media organizations simply can't. And now, 50 years later, we are still putting on a national news show, 2 hours long, every single day, with a staff that's still really not all that big. And on top of that, we have somehow managed to meet our audience in new spaces like our afternoon news podcast, Consider This, as well as Instagram. We're doing like these explainer videos, and we have just gotten so used to punching above our weight. And you know, I wouldn't have it any other way, because I have never quite had a job like this. I used to be a lawyer, hated being at a law firm, quit, became a journalist, and now I cannot believe that I have a job that gives me the permission to learn everything I can about the world and teach other people about it. A job that has truly made me a fuller human being. I can't believe I get a salary to join a team and literally consider all the things.
Wow, totally inspiring. Congratulations again to Alyssa and to the entire All Things Considered team. Now we fast forward to 2022. Our Hall of Fame inductee, Jim Bohannon, host of Westwood One's nationally syndicated The Jim Bohannon Show. Jim Bohannon is a broadcast radio legend. He once said during an interview that the best advice he's ever received in radio is, be yourself. That's what Jim has done for more than 50 years in the radio business. And listeners across the country have loved him for it. He's known not only for bringing his audience breaking news and important headlines, but for allowing callers to feel heard as they share and discuss their own thoughts and opinions. He's also the former host of and current contributor to America in the Morning. His career includes hosting his own Saturday night phone-in program and years spent as the principal backup and eventual host of The Larry King Show. For 5 decades, Jim Bohannon has shared with us his wit, wisdom, and natural charm as he has opened our eyes to the news of the world around us. Let's take a closer look.
He grew up listening to the radio. He's worked in radio since he was a teenager. He's from the heartland and understands the audience.
He's a Vietnam veteran and proud for his service. For the last 60 years, Jim has honed his craft as a broadcaster, both as a student and as a pioneer.
He's got a wonderful voice. He puts together a very, very well-constructed radio show, and he's got a natural warmth and charisma that resonates with people.
Well, here we are. It's the Jim Bohannon Show. We are most honored to welcome to the Jim Bohannon Show Dr. Carl Sagan. Ralph Nader joins us this evening. Tom Clancy, our guest. The Honorable Casper Weinberger joins us. Sugar Ray Leonard is our guest. The former Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld. Good to have you with us, Mr. Secretary.
Jim is unique because he's a talk show host newsman in a sea of hyperpartisanship.
Afternoon. I'm so sorry that Jim isn't here personally to accept this honor. I know he was really looking forward to it, and having another opportunity to address you, his colleagues, and pitch you to carry the Jim Bohannon Show from Westwood One. He'd surely be working the room right now. Well, Jim asked me to stand in for him today because no one can really take his place. I'll do it just for today. But I know his stories. I can probably ad-lib a few off the top of my head. In deference to Jim, though, I'd like to share some of the words that he prepared for this occasion. Jim says, "This is an honor of the highest order and one requiring many thanks. Thanks to the National Association of Broadcasters, not only for this humbling accolade, but for all they do to keep this a vibrant, vital industry, which continues to serve our nation as a whole and communities across the land. Thanks to the NAB and Gordon Smith, Curtis Leggett, Dennis Wharton, John David, and countless others. Thanks to our management at Cumulus Westwood One, including but not limited to Mary Berner, Suzanne Grimes, Kevin Delaney, wait, that's me, and Bart Tessler, who was our Senior Vice President for News and Talk Programming for many years. Jim also wanted to thank his production team, Kathy Johnson, Alex Hinton, Jeff McKay, and John Ramey, for all their hard work on the Jim Bohannon Show. And to Stuart Greenblatt and his Westwood One affiliate sales team. Here comes the sales pitch I was telling you about earlier. Call Stuart Greenblatt for exclusive broadcast rights to the Jim Bohannon Show in your market. Jim, I just wanted you to know that I got that in there for you. Thanks to all of our terrific affiliate sponsors and listeners, without whom Jim says he wouldn't have a career, only an expensive hobby. Jim started his career at KLWT, Lebanon, Missouri, Jim's hometown. He often said those call letters stood for Keep Listening, We're Trying. That was station imaging back in those days. Jim didn't get into radio for the money. Minimum wage was just $1 an hour back then. No, he didn't get into radio because he wanted to be a journalist or a newscaster or a talk show host. Jim got into radio for what he says was a much more noble reason. He wanted to spin records and meet girls. But into radio he got, and what a great career. He did become a journalist and a newscaster. He's anchored many political conventions and presidential elections, and he became a talk show host, starting on the national airwaves by filling in for Larry King, as you know, on his legendary overnight radio show. Almost 40 years ago, he started hosting the Jim Bohannon Show on Saturday nights, and he eventually took over Larry's weeknight show when Larry went to CNN.